comes to you compliments Antillian Life Insurance, Hills and Valley Pharmacy, and the Spice Isle Imaging Center.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Good evening once again, everyone. Welcome to Doctor on Call. Yes, indeed, every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Well, it's already gone past 8. We've been having some lengthy obituaries recently. Yes, all the more reason to be tuning into the program. Yes, indeed, to get information that can help you to be a healthier individual. Yes, and to get involved in healthier practices. And of course, that can result in lengthening your days here on earth. All right. So good evening once again. Welcome to our viewers on GBN Television 7 and 11, our viewers on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and of course our listeners on K105 FM. Wherever you are, we welcome you, and it's a pleasure. This evening, a very, very, very important topic we are discussing. I'm sure many of you saw the promo during the course of the week. Mental disorders, and there are many different types of mental disorder. In fact, the World Health Organization has determined that 1 in every 8 person or every 8 people in the world live with a mental disorder. You know, so actually you could be living with a mental disorder and probably you don't know. But I have with me the best person that can help us understand mental disorders, how to prevent ourselves from being in that place, and of course, how do you treat someone with a mental disorder? None other than my good buddy, my co-host, yes indeed, Dr. Augustine Panchoo. Doc, good evening and welcome back. It's a pleasure.
Good evening, Godfrey. Good evening, listeners, to this very famous program of GBN, Doctor on Call. This program has really been going on for a long time. I know you and Dr. Nixon have piloted and spearheaded this together with Dr. Martin and stuff. This is really good. So it's great to be back, yes. to be with you, to be back. Also, I've been on this program before, and tonight we have a very interesting topic. And Godfrey, one session, even though this is a 2-hour session, is really not enough for us to cover the whole range of mental health issues that exist in the world and in Grenada. And if we are going to do justice to the topic, we will probably need another or a couple more sessions, because there are so many things. Of course, definitely. So when you talk about mental illness, there are so many things, because you have the illnesses themselves, and then you have all these different types of mental illnesses, and then there is a relationship between the physical health and mental health, and then you look at treatment. Treatment is a whole session, and then whether it's a psychotherapy and or medication. So tonight we're going to I'm saying all of that for our listeners to understand that we may not be able to cover everything tonight.
That's right.
Some questions may be left unanswered for another program. So let's get right into it. As when you're ready, let's start talking mental
definitely. And I want to go back again, to what the World Health Organization has said. 1 in every 8 people in the world live with a mental disorder. Dr. Panchoo, that is very significant, and that is a little worrying, because that's a lot. That's a lot of people.
Godfrey, Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
You know,
Yeah.
and basically, it went on to speak of mental disorders and what it involves: disturbances in thinking, emotional regulation. It affects your behavior and all of that. So, we're gonna start by explaining to our listeners what it means to have a mental disorder. So, we hear the term mental disorder. Dr. Panchoo, explain that for us.
Okay. So you can have mental health, sound mental health, or you can have a mental illness. And a mental illness, someone who is diagnosed with a mental illness, we usually say that person is living with a mental disorder. So watch this. They're living with, and we do not define people by their mental health status. So we define people as people who are either living with good mental health, or they're living with a mental health disorder. So mental illness, Godfrey, is really a wide range of mental health conditions that affect adversely our thinking, our mood, and consequently our behaviors.
Right.
But these effect is usually observed in three major areas of our lives. One, it is observed in our work/career. So if the mental health condition that we're talking about is starting to show up in your work, you're late for work, you're constantly absent, or you're not showing up at all, or in your career. So if it affects your work/your career, that's one area. Then the second area is your scholastic/educational aspect of your life. So if it is affecting your learning, if you're a student and you're in school and it's affecting your schooling or your scholastic achievement, then that's a second area. And then the third area that we look forward to help determine if it is a mental illness that you're living with, we ask, is it affecting your family/your community? So in other words, your family life, the way, how things are at home with your family, with your spouse, with your parents, and or in your community, maybe in your community forum, your church, and other areas in the community. If it's affected in those three major areas of your life, if the distress of the mental health condition is affecting those three areas, then we can diagnose you with a specific mental illness and say that you're living with a mental disorder. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful.
And so there are several areas of concern for people with living or diagnosed with a mental illness. So there are different types of mental illness. Okay. So we have what is called clinical disorders. These are your things like your anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress, your depression, major depression, general, whether it's dysthymia, and I'm going to call a lot of big words tonight probably, and some stuff that we are going to get into. And if there are any clinical people listening, they will understand. But we're going to break it down as much as we can, so that a lot of people could understand what we're talking about. So you have clinical disorders. These are your depression, your anxieties, bipolar disorder. And then you have some disorders that are referred to as personality disorders.
Yes.
And Godfrey,
that's a huge area in itself.
Yes,
I mean,
that one that's a massive one, because there are 10 very specific personality disorders.
Yes.
That's a disorder for which there is no cure. And I want to tell you that tonight. So a person who is diagnosed with a personality disorder rarely he will take medication, or she will be prescribed medication usually, or is be seen in for psychotherapeutic treatment, but there is really no cure. Mm-hmm. So that person is just going to be coming. It's to be diagnosed with a personality disorder is almost like being diagnosed with a terminal illness. It's something that is going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And there are 10 of them. And some of the major ones are really dependent personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder. And the major one that a lot of people are scared of when they hear about it is what we refer to as narcissistic personality disorder. That is the person that always puts himself or herself first. It doesn't matter what position they are in or where they come from. They always see themselves as the best, as the first, that they deserve the biggest slice of the pie. They must always be at advantage, and you must always be at a disadvantage. The problem here with narcissistic personality people is that it's okay to aim to want to be first, to win, to always to think of self sometimes, Godfrey. Mm-hmm. But when you think of self at the expense of others, in other words, in order to promote me, I must demote you. Now, that is what we refer to as narcissistic personality disorder. So there are 10 of them, and we will certainly not be able to talk about them tonight. More. And then there are some, Godfrey. So in addition to the clinical disorders, you have personality disorders, and then you have some general medical conditions. Yeah, there are some medical conditions that are prelude to mental health disorders. So for example, let me quickly talk about one. Erectile in the males, erectile dysfunction is a physiological malfunctioning of your sex organs and everything that's attached to it. But it becomes a psychological issue for you, because if you cannot, if you're impotent and you have problems with erectile functioning, then it becomes
it starts to affect you mentally. Mm-hmm.
So there are some general medical disorders that are also classified as mental health disorders. Mm-hmm. And then, Godfrey, we have some psychosocial and some environmental disorders that we can talk about. And then there are some childhood developmental disorders. So it starts from the infant. You know, when we give birth to a child, there are certain things about the child's development that can be classified or are classified as mental health disorders. When you look at children and you diagnose them with a pervasive developmental disorder or an attachment disorder, things like autism or Asperger's syndrome, Down syndrome. So these are developmental disorders, but they're classified also as mental health disorders because they're not just affecting the physiological person, they are also affecting cognition, mood, behavior, thinking, and that's what we established when we established the meaning. A working definition for mental health disorder, we say it's a wide range of mental health conditions that are adversely affecting at least three major areas of our lives, whether it is our career, our schooling, and our family life. And if all of those are affected adversely, then we can safely diagnose that person as living with a mental health disorder.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Panchoo, now we've just sort of put that into perspective. Let's go back to some of the clinical disorders. And there might be those that people are familiar with. They probably may have heard about it. Maybe don't understand it, but they may have heard about it. And you mentioned the workplace, of course, family and environment and things like that, and the scholastic aspect of it. Right. So me and you, we from the same community. We grew up together. We go and pelt mango together. We electrocuted breadfruit and goose food together. We go to the same school, but You are excelling, I am not. All right. I mean, let's look at it. What are some of the things that can actually bring on a mental disorder? We know there could be medical conditions, but aside from that, when someone goes to school, you in the community, everybody else, you all play together, you cook together, you do everything. But when you go to school, as the folks say, you can't learn.
Okay. Well, here it is, Godfrey. Mental health disorders are not easy. It's not very easy to pinpoint an exact reason. But here is what research suggests and or have found out. That someone can be living and or diagnosed and living with a mental health disorder because of genetics.
Right.
So maybe a parent or a grandparent has a history of schizophrenia or maybe addictive disorders, okay? Bipolar is one of them. And it can pass on in the genes. So there is a genetic aspect to mental illness. Secondly, there is a biological reason. Sometimes the chemicals, our neurotransmitters, right? This is a big word now. It's brain chemicals, is the chemical impulses that triggers growth and sends messages throughout our bodies. Sometimes those neurotransmitters are not firing because we have in our brain and in our body something called synapses, okay? So I'm introducing you to a little biology tonight. Synapses, it's like the spark plug of your vehicle, all right? When you turn on your ignition, the battery causes a fire in the spark plug. The spark plug now ignites the gas that we put in our tank, and this starts the motor, and the
engine starts to run. Yes.
In the human body, it's the synapses. So the neurotransmitters are firing through the synapse, and sometimes the plug, as it were, the synapses, they really do not function right. And so there is a lessening on the production of a certain neurotransmitter or an overproduction of a neurotransmitter. And we call it a chemical imbalance. Usually, if you have a chemical imbalance in your brain, then you are what we refer to as in a state of equilibrium. In other words, you're not functioning right. Okay? So that's how medication comes in, where the psychiatrist or the medical doctor will prescribe you a certain medication to either produce more of the neurotransmitter or to inhibit the production. So if you're overproducing. So genetics, a biological reason, and Godfrey, there are some things that we refer to as childhood, adverse childhood experiences, traumatic experiences can cause a child to not develop properly. So let's say a child falls in the formative years from the bed. He can injure his brain development. Okay, remember what the brain is really, Godfrey. The brain is not stuck onto the skull. The brain is sort of swimming in some brain fluid. And so if you knock the head, there is a possibility that the brain could get injured and bleed, and you can destroy certain organs of the brain. That's why you do not hit people in the head. That's why athletes who receive a lot of injury to the head, you develop what is called a concussion. So Godfrey, what happens here is that as a child, if you suffer, sometimes we refer to it as TBI, traumatic brain injury. If you have a traumatic brain injury, then it is likely that you could have a malfunctioning of your brain chemicals, your neurotransmitters, which lead to mental health deficit. Also, in the developing child, there is something called teratogens, which is like certain toxic chemicals that get into the child's bloodstream at the infant level, sometimes even through while they are still developing in the embryonic stage in the mother's womb, and you may have children that are born with severe deformity, Godfrey, or sometimes severe developmental or physical challenges, and those translate into mental health deficit. And then finally, Godfrey, there are things that happen in our environment, whether it is through water or through food or things that we take into our body that destroys the body's capacity and capability of handling things like stress, and they can lead to mental health disorders. So there is a wide variety of origin or reason why some people may excel while others cannot seem, as you refer to as, they're not able to learn. It's because they have all of those factors or some of those factors happening in their lives and in their bodies. As a result, they are not able to be as productive as others. And a lot of those things can lead to what is referred to as mental illness or mental disorders, or people living with mental disorders.
Right. So, Doc, let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want us to speak about a couple of the clinical disorders, and hopefully we can move on from there. So, we take a short break, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment. When we come back a little later on, we'll be opening the line, so you can, if you have any questions you would like to ask, you'd have the opportunity to do so as well. So, stay with us. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
Stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give. It's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
When you need your prescription filled or you require non-prescribed medication, supplements, or all your personal needs, visit Gittins Healthcare at locations on Wall Street, Grand Anse, Victoria Street, Glenwood, and Central Deputy Street, Wall. Gittins Healthcare aims to provide an exceptional personalized pharmacy experience. Additionally, children under 5 and adults 55 years and over will enjoy 10% discount on purchases of $20 and over on prescription medication. Stop settling for less. Visit Gittins Healthcare, where your health is our priority.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carrico. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Speyside Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but SpyCell Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. SpyCell Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grandlands. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services. CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 406-1500 or visit any of our 3 locations. SpyCell Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
Hubbard's is adapting to the times to enhance your shopping convenience with its new online store. You can now shop for appliances, hardware, houseware, builder's material, and still enjoy free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at www.hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable. Hubbard's. Quality service, affordable prices.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Doctor on Call, and this evening we're discussing mental disorders. Earlier, before the break, we sort of put things into perspective, explain what is a mental disorder, and what can cause that. Dr. Panchoo, so we've understood a number of things. Now, what are some of the symptoms? In other words, how can you tell if someone might be or is suffering from a mental disorder?
Okay, so here are some of the things that we look for as professionals, and sometimes, Godfrey, we teach professionals because there are many of us around. We teach families to look out for these things in their children or in their family. We teach adults to look out for these in their children. So here are some of the telltale signs, We'll probably talk about 8 or 9 of them tonight. Feeling sad or down. Now it's okay to feel sad sometimes. It's okay to feel down sometimes, because not everyone can remain peppy, preppy, bushy-eyed, and ready to go every day. But spending most of your time feeling sad or feeling down is a sign, a symptom of maybe there is something going on here. Secondly, confused thinking, or what we refer to as distorted thinking. The inability to concentrate. You're in discussion, but you're always fidgeting. That's a sign. Excessive fears and worry is another sign that we might be dealing here with some mental health issues or mental disorders. Extreme mood swings, Godfrey. You speak to somebody now and they're happy, and then in 5 minutes they're angry, or they're sad, or they're tearing up or crying. Extreme mood swings from high and to low in quick succession is a sign that we're dealing with some mental health disorders. Withdrawal/isolation. So if you find the person is isolating, Godfrey, they're vivacious, they're full of life, and then long periods in their lives, they want to isolate, they want to be alone, then start thinking mental disorder. Significant tiredness, Godfrey, low energy. That's a sign that something is boiling. Detachment from reality. If you have people who start telling you that they're hearing voices, that they're seeing things, they're saying things that do not look real or seem real to you, that's a sign that we might be dealing with some mental illnesses. Inability, Godfrey, watch this, inability to cope with normal stress in their lives. That's another symptom of mental illness or a sign that we're dealing with some form of mental health disorder. Trouble understanding and relating to situation and people. In other words, people who lack emotional intelligence, they're unable to describe their own feeling, and as a result, they're unable to describe and appreciate the feelings of others. That's a problem. Problems, Godfrey, with alcohol and drugs is a telltale sign we're dealing with mental illness. And for all the guys around now who get drunk on a nightly basis, tell yourself that what they're experiencing is a form of mental illness. Major changes in your eating habits, another sign. Sex drive, drastic changes in your sex drive that are not medically related. So if you're healthy and you're experiencing drastic changes in your libido or your sex drive, then start thinking that it could be related to a mental illness. Excessive anger and hostility or violence, Godfrey. So people who perpetrate intimate partner violence, they're doing it because of coming from a form of mental illness. And the last one I want to mention quickly is suicidal thinking. Thinking that threatens your life and other life. Homicidal thinking and suicidal ideation or thinking. These are forms or symptoms that something is brewing, some mental health or mental illness might be in the making. Okay? So now that we have talked about some of the symptoms, Godfrey, I want you to venture, I think you want us to venture into talking about some specific mental illnesses or mental disorders.
Yes.
And we can start tonight with the anxiety disorder.
Yeah, because that is a very common, very, very common one.
Yes.
So let's speak about it. Anxiety disorders. As the word said, people are anxious. They feel. You're the expert. Go ahead and explain to our listeners.
Okay.
Anxiety
well, no, you're
disorders.
doing fine because we're doing this thing together. Okay. Remember, we were born and raised in the same village, in close proximity to each other. So your smartness is rubbing off on me tonight. So,
I think it's the other way around.
So what happens, Godfrey, when we talk about anxiety disorders? Let's establish that anxiety really is a form of fear. A form we in psychology refer to it as phobia. Phobia. Okay? The PH is F. So phobias, fearfulness, fear or uncertain. Okay? That's where anxiety comes from. Okay? Anxiety is fear of the unknown. Because anytime we know, then there is less for us to be afraid of.
That's right.
Okay? All right. So remember that tonight. So when we talk about anxiety disorders, we are talking about a host of disorders, mental health disorders, that are associated with some form of phobia, some form of fear, some form of the unknown. The very simple or the simplest of the anxiety disorders is what we refer to as GAD, G-A-D, General Anxiety Disorder. Right? So it's a kind of general, it is not so much specific as a specific phobia, but it is general anxiety. So you are fearful, you might be fearful of you see the weather is making up and the outside is dark, Godfrey, and because you have experienced Ivan before, you know that when outside gets dark and it starts raining, then there is a possibility that a hurricane could come.
Yeah.
So if you hear the word hurricane, you go into a stage of uneasiness, general anxiety. You're fearful of accidents because you had a crash in learning to drive, you crashed. And so every time you get into a vehicle, you are a little fearful. So there are some general things that people are anxious about. That's general anxiety disorders. And then there is what we refer to as panic attacks. Panic attacks is where you feel, when you have a panic attack, you are feeling as though you can't breathe, that you are about to die, literally. And that's why it is called a panic. It's panic because you conclude that you're going to die because you cannot breathe. And these are very extreme. And a panic attack could happen to you out of the blue. You could be driving, literally. You could be flying an airplane. That's why pilots and people at those positions, the truck drivers and stuff who go from state to state, they have to undergo a lot of psychological psychometrics before they're allowed to handle these very, very fragile sort of positions. Because if you're a pilot and you suffer with anxiety and you have a panic attack, you know that something is not going to work well. So panic attack usually happens sudden, and it gives you the impression that you are about to die. And where does panic attack come from, Godfrey? Nobody can pinpoint and say this is what is causing it. Sometimes people have never had a history of anxiety before, but out of the blue, at one point in their life, they just feel as though they're going to die. They become fearful. They become erratic in their behavior because they're having a panic attack.
But doc, before you go further, so according to DSM-5, right? Now, anxiety it's a human emotion. But he also go on to say that everybody, you deal with it differently. But why? It is a human emotion. So why, if me and you, we flying on a plane or we decide we go down by Artist Bay and we go jump in a boat with them fellas, you okay, and we in the same boat, in the same Artist, but I'm afraid and you got.
Well, really and truly, you're going to be okay because I am afraid of water and I'm afraid of boats. So it's going to be the other way around. But you may ask that. Godfrey, I'll give you the very quick answer, and it's the truth answer. A lot of the anxieties that we have in life and fears that we have in life are based upon prior experiences of something similar that has threatened our well-being.
So that sort of reminds us of a previous experience.
It is the body's. Watch this, Godfrey. This is the beauty about psychology. It is the body's defense mechanism. It's the body's way of saying to you, I've seen this before. I have felt this before. It's a scary thing for me. I have concluded before that it's a scary thing. Let's not go there because there is a likelihood that something bad can happen.
No, Dr. Panchoo, you say it wrong. It's okay, don't go there. It's don't go there.
All right.
You have to get it right.
I didn't learn how to say it. I didn't learn how to say it. But really and truly, so in your childhood, remember, as we are developing, we are learning to trust the world. That's one of the basic achievement of a child.
Yeah, childhood development. Yes.
To trust the world, to say the world is a safe place. I want to thrive in this world because my parents treat me nice. When I cry, they attend to me. When I am dirty, they change my diapers. They pamper me with Johnson & Johnson baby powder, and they kiss me on the cheek and they put me to bed. They breastfeed me. The world is a safe place. Now, when children learn at this early age that the world is not a safe place, they start to have anxiety. They start to have phobias and fears of death. If a child, and today I was In discussion with someone, we were talking about the things children learn that parents and adults do not think that children are learning. Children, their brain, 1 year, 2 years old, their brain are able to capture images. And as they grow, their behaviors are altered. And the parents are now wondering, what is happening here? But it could be that the child is responding to some form of intimate partner violence that they saw when they were 1 year old. They saw the father, slap you around or blooded you or punch you in the face. It's recorded. The child may not have had an experience or a facial recognition or experience about it visible, but it is recorded. So now as they're growing up, they see a hand coming. Watch this, Godfrey. You see a hand coming, a hand of a stranger coming with a clenched fist. The person is not about to hurt you necessarily, but already your brain has captured
yes,
means somebody is going to scream. And so they see a clenched fist. It could be a friendly fist, but they're in fear because their brain has already captured
an image of that,
and made an image out of it. You see how fears and phobias come, Godfrey? So, Godfrey, we have general anxiety disorder, we have panic disorder, then we have what is referred to as obsessive compulsive disorder.
Mm-hmm.
OCD. Now, OCD is like a double. Yes, it's like a double disorder, because you have the obsession, which is the thought processes, and you have compulsion, which is the behavior piece. So your brain is telling you, boy, you see this man that's coming there? You see how his clothes look dirty? This man is carrying germs. That's what your brain is telling you. So it's obsessing. As he comes closer, you are having an anxiety disorder. If you see him cough, you're thinking, boy, he's going to make me sick today. And the compulsion would be when you see him come, then you believe you must go to the bathroom and wash your hands and wash your hands and wash your hands, because you are going to get sick. You see people that are called germaphobe, people who are hypochondriacs. These are people who believe that everything and anything will make them get sick. So they are always
on guard,
anxious, always on guard. And this is a very fearful place and a fearful way to live. To be afraid that you're going to get sick with every wind that blows. The wind blows hard and you're thinking, boy, something from Africa is coming. And there are people, watch this, you laugh, but there are people.
No, I understand it very well.
Yes, people who live like that. And they come to see you, and you must now try to fix them or try to help them to navigate this anxiety in their life. So you have general anxiety disorder, you have panic disorder, you have obsessive compulsive disorder, and then, Godfrey, the last one is that you have some very specific phobias. For example, arachnophobia, the fear of spiders. Fear of the dark. I am trying to remember all
fear of heights. Fear of
heights. Fear of snakes.
Fear of failure.
Blood. Right, fear of failure. Godfrey, there is one I was reading recently. I was teaching a class on phobias, anxiety disorders, and I came up on a reading. There is one now that we refer to, and I'm trying to remember the name, but I will tell you what it is, and then you can Google it and you'll find it later on. It's the fear of fear. In other words, the fear of being afraid.
Yeah.
Right. So, and there are so many. Claustrophobia, the inability to survive in closed space. There are some people who literally cannot live in a room with somebody else. Think of if you're marrying someone who is a claustrophobic. That person must have a room the size of a mansion, because he or she cannot live comfortably in tight spaces. Mm-hmm. So the fear of hills, fear of water, fear of long fingernails, fear of, there are so many phobias, so very specific phobias that you deal with on a daily basis. And think of how uncomfortable life can be for someone with some specific phobias who is thrust out into the world or on a train or put in a plane for 8 hours with complete strangers. So anxiety disorders can be really debilitating and really engender fear and discomfort in people. And Godfrey, think of it. 1 in 8 person in Grenada is living with a mental illness. Yeah? What does that tell you? That tells you about 10% of people in Grenada. So anywhere from 10 to 15,000 people are living with a mental illness in Grenada. And I want to think that the statistics for Grenada is a little higher. It's a little higher.
Well, yes, I do agree with you because
based upon what I see, what I experience on a daily basis, we can conclude that. It's not scientific because I haven't done a research on that. So as a professional, you have to qualify that with saying that this is unsubstantiated findings at this time, but it's just conclusionary stuff based upon what you see. And I tell you a lot that people are able to, and that's the joy about psychology, mental illness, is that people could be diagnosed with a mental illness, but they have the capability, the support system to live successfully with that mental illness. Yes.
Definitely. So Doc, let's take our final break and then we'll open the telephone line because the telephone has been going a while. So we take a final break and then we'll come back and we'll take some calls. So stay with us, folks. Don't go away.
Okay.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family, yes we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great savings through discounts for senior citizens and reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Jubilee Street opposite the Grenville Bus Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carrico. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and in the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family, yes we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Spicile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Spicile Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Spicile Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grand Anse. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services: CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679 or 406-1500, or visit any of our 3 locations. Spice Cell Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment as you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Welcome back, everyone. Doctor and Call. And folks, our telephone line is now open. The number is 435-2041. So if you have any questions you would like to ask Dr. Panchoo, you can definitely do so. So you can get some answers. You probably might know someone who has a mental disorder and you may want to assist. Of course, you can do that. So, Doc, let's go to our telephone. Doctor and Call, good evening. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Good evening, caller.
Hello, good evening, and good night to the doctor. I'd just like to find out something. Is when you have this mental disorder, do you have any medication for it? Because why I asked that, I have a son that's going through that same problem. He locks himself in the room and he talks to himself. He makes funny calls to people, threatening them, and all this kind of thing. Before you tell him anything, he gets vexed, he blow up, he hide himself and all this kind of thing, and he keep isolating himself from people. So I'd just like to know if you have any medication, if any medication is you could get for him for that.
Okay, thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Panchoo will address it. Doc?
Yeah. Well, based upon the symptomatology that she's experiencing and or describing, it could be a couple of things that are happening. It could be bipolar, or it could be an attack of a schizophrenic attack, or a psychotic break. I don't know the history, so it's difficult for me to diagnose whether or not it is full-blown schizophrenia. But some of the symptoms do match and mimic those of someone diagnosed with schizophrenia. And the answer is yes, my dear. There are medications. You would have to get that person evaluated by a psychiatrist. So either you take them to the emergency room at the general hospital, or you take them to Mungay, where they can be evaluated by the professionals. And once it is determined what form of mental illness that we're dealing with, there are medications that will help to stabilize the person or keep them safe, keep you safe, and help them to live normal, well, as normal as it can be. The problem here with medication and people taking medication or who are required to take medication is sometimes the consistency with which the medication, the regimen is followed. Because if you're taking medication for stabilization, of maintenance, of dealing with the mental illness, then you need to be taking it at the prescribed time of day and the prescribed dosage. And so that becomes issues when you're mentally ill. Sometimes you are not thinking straight, so you cannot calibrate and you cannot always remember the number and the times. So that's one of the issues that we have to deal with in Grenada. But yes, there are medications that, if taken, will help you or help your child or your son. Yes.
Right. And folks, let me just say this, that, Dr. Panchoo can provide information, but he is not in a position to make a diagnosis. So don't expect that. You will have to see him at his office, I think in Grenville, Doc? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I do have an office in Grenville. Yeah.
So you can contact Doc and definitely, because you would need to, as he said, understand the history before any analysis and diagnosis is made. Let's go back to the telephone. Doctor and call. Good evening.
Yes. Good evening to you, sir. Good evening to the doc. You will have to run this program for some time, You'll have to stick on this program for quite some time. So that is extremely important. Doc, you're doing a fine job. But I want to make a request of Doc. For coming to his rescue, I wonder if he can give me half of his salary monthly. You heard me?
I heard you. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can work on that. I don't know if you want to wait, because I haven't been paid for July yet. So we're almost to the end of August, right? So I have.
Doc, let me tell you something. You say one in 8, but let me take you back, and Godfrey perhaps could bail me out here. Before you came to this program many years ago, that was the topic that I had with the social services, which are many one, because I dealt with a few cases well enough. And my concern, as I said to the Ministry of Education then, we needed a full-time psychologist in every school, because I identified the problem a long time ago. And why I say that we're losing mental capacity, that is my theme, this is losing mental capacity, because I discover that we do not have the patience, we don't analyze, we conclude. We don't really discuss on a cordial basis where we could agree and disagree on this. We conclude and we become hostile. And that situation is becoming a little worse. So I am worried to say 1 in 8, but I am worried because I am one person who said many years ago, 1/10 of the population were in that sorry state. I know it's more now, but you have a big task in your hand, Doc, and you cannot give it up. Godfrey is doing a wonderful program, and you have to stick there for some time, because we are in a very bad place. I remember a few years ago that a survey was done, and it concluded that not only at the bottom, but at the middle and at the top, I think it was 4%. 4%. And I said, wait a minute. I wasn't expecting that. But I said, no, at that level, I couldn't believe that. 35% at the middle and 4% at the top. That was serious cause for concern. So we are in a bad place, and we have to find a solution to that. And Doc, you cannot give it up. Godfrey, please continue that kind of program. The brain.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, bye-bye. Yes. All right, the number 435-2041. Doc, you mentioned, and it's so important. You spoke a bit about childhood earlier, and this is very, very, very important, because a lot starts there. And if the child or children are not cared for properly and not given the kind of attention that they require, even aside from developing mental problems, they can have other, problems that they would encounter as they grow older. So I want us to talk a bit about that. But let's go back to the telephone. We have another caller. Doctor on call, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
I have a question for Dr. Panchoo. I want to know, every time they say hurricane, and I get in a diarrhea.
Yeah.
And anytime they say hurricane, the rain start to fall, the wind start to blow, I get in a diarrhea. So I want to know if that is a mental disorder. Thank you.
Thank you,
wow.
caller.
Well, my dear, Godfrey, exactly what we're saying.
Well, we spoke about that earlier. Yes, indeed.
So let me tell you, caller, absolutely, you are suffering from what we refer to as post-traumatic stress disorder. In other words, the trauma that you have experienced and or suffer was so ingrained and so etched in your brain that every time you see the rain set up, the dark clouds, you hear the wind, you hear the thunder, and you see the lightning, your body has a way of defending. What your body is saying to you when you have diarrhea. Some people have headaches. Some people, it's. I want you to protect yourself. So go hide somewhere. Go in the toilet. Do something, because your body is speaking to you, and that's how trauma speaks to us when we are re-experiencing it or when we are triggered. So what the rain is for you, my dear, is what we refer to as a trigger. It's triggering you to bring you back to whether it is Janet in 1955 or Hurricane Ivan in 2004 or Emily in 2007. These are memorable storms that came, and those who experienced it, when you see the rain and you hear the thunder, you go right back there. So yes, it is a trauma that your brain has recorded, and your body is telling you protect itself.
All right, Dr. Panchoo, my question to you: in a case like that, how can you cure something like this?
Not necessarily, Godfrey. This PTSD and early childhood trauma, we can. The good thing is that we can restructure the brain. In other words, we can help the brain to develop what we call new neural pathways. So we can rewire the brain, as it were. Sometimes what the brain does, the brain goes through a process called pruning. Mm-hmm. So Godfrey, you and I, we grew up in Tivoli, so we know about trees. When you have a tree and you have a dry branch, in your flower garden, you can prune it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Cut the old branches, and then it will regenerate you. Yes. And what the research has found out, because there was a time when the research on brain performance and brain activity told us that if you damage cells in the brain, that you become stupider, none wiser, because you lose some of that capacity.
You're getting mad.
But but Godfrey, here is the beauty about research. Research has now shown through a process called pruning, the brain can regenerate new pathways, and there is a process called brain plasticity or neuroplasticity, where the brain can now expand. Mm-hmm. As a plastic, you can mold it and shape it when it is pliable. The brain is like that. So if you experience an early childhood trauma, or even in adulthood, but then you deal with it through therapy, and you create safe, warm, building environment for you to thrive, then your brain can now put that past behind it and forge ahead with new thinking and new pathways and new perception. So my dear sister, who is getting diarrhea when thunder rolls and rain start falling, you can. I can help you to stop the diarrhea, because we can do activities. Yeah, Godfrey. Yeah, we can do what is called desensitization.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
We can do desensitization therapy, and we can work on the brain to the point where we can achieve.
Do some pruning and yes. Yes, indeed. All right. 435-2041. That's the number you can call. Doc, just to we were under anxiety disorder, and a couple of things came up post PTSD and stuff like that, the childhood mental disorders, and so there is one I think that is very common as well, eating disorders. Before we come to that, because there is a problem. A good friend of mine from Guav once said to me, Godfrey, we just dig our graves with our teeth. And it took me a while to understand what she meant, but I got it after. Let's go to the telephone. Dr. on call, good evening.
Yes, good evening. I would like to ask Dr. Panchoo something that I was discussing with somebody some time ago. Has he ever, maybe in his practice, or heard of other psychologists in the practice, have a patient who come, they examine them, they obviously is sick, but they cannot see anything physically that caused what they are experiencing or what they display. Thank you.
Thank you. Call up.
Godfrey, the gist of it I missed because the voice was a little muffled. Could you help me?
I think she was asking about examining a patient, but not being able to find if anything is wrong.
Absolutely. Let me tell you this, Godfrey. There are many psychological or mental health disorders that are rooted in just the brain, and it's not. We refer to it as psychosomatic symptoms. So in other words, somebody can come to you and tell you they're having a headache or they're having a bellyache or pain somewhere. And it doesn't matter how many CT scans or MRIs or X-rays that are done or blood work that is done, you will not find any evidence of its existence, because many times it is psychosomatic. It is in the reality of the person, but it really doesn't exist in the real physical sense. Okay? And so that's a good question. So a lot of times, a patient, a client may say to you, I am having this, and then you send them for a blood work and it comes back negative. And for real, there is nothing there that we can put our fingers on. Yeah.
So for example, sometimes when you hear people tell you, boy, a doctor can't find my complaint.
Yes, doctor can't find your complaint because it is all psychosomatic.
But then that leads to some other issues, because then now their minds start going in a different place.
Absolutely, because if you're feeling it, it's real to you, you're experiencing it, but nobody else will believe you, because there is no one can point a finger and say this is what it is. It makes you become even more worried, and then your symptoms, which we refer to as somatoform symptoms, that is, they're there, but it is more in your brain, in your imagination, and I'm sorry, I can't see it. And because I can't see it, it is difficult to treat, Godfrey, because as a dispensing physician, and I am not one, so I have to rely on my good friends, the medical doctors and the psychiatrists, so I can see a symptom, I can know what medication might work for it, but I have to refer that person now to a medical doctor so that they can look at them, examine them, and prescribe the right medication. And so sometimes you are baffled as to what to prescribe simply because you're not seeing it.
But a placebo may work.
Well, that's true. And do you know that in the medical profession, it is okay to give a placebo?
Yes.
And for our listeners, a placebo is really, not a real medication, but we make you believe that you're getting a medication. So we'll give you a pill, and the pill has no potency, doesn't have any chemicals inside there. It's more done in research than in real experience and in real practice.
Because that's what you see. That and when people think that they sick and they believe in something, and if you believe in something and you give them, then they tell you that they're okay. And that's when
absolutely. Yes, you can give somebody a Skittles. You can wash away the color from a Skittles and give them the Skittles and tell them it's Motrin for the pain they're having in their knee. And when they take the Skittles and they eat it, it's pure sugar, and they go home and they're feeling good because the psychosomatic says, I just got 800 milligrams of Motrin for the pain in my knee, when actually it was just an M&M.
Yep, indeed. Let's go back to the telephone. Doctor and call, good evening.
Yeah, good night, Godfrey.
Good evening, caller.
Yeah, let me see if I saw the video, though. Yeah, good afternoon, good night to the doctor. Very interesting program. I just want to ask a few questions in relation to some of the things that the doctor said earlier about, things from childhood could trigger. Could it also be, for instance, one of the reasons why in racially divided countries like the United States, where the people who get killed or who are inadvertently affected by policing, is it because, like, for instance, the conditioning of the mainly white policemen, when they see a black man, as you were saying about somebody with a hand, it might be interpreted like the kingfish might be interpreted like if they might be going to hurt the other person. Is it that could happen in situations where you have those environments where people being conditioned to look at the other in a certain way. So once they see the person, those things comes up. Also, you said that there are 8 people out of every 100, I think, that have some kind of mental disorder. Some years ago, the late Dr. Winston Thomas, God bless his soul wherever he is, told me that a study was done and there were over 5,000 mentally ill people in Grenada. Yet we have not really developed a proper system. I don't think we still have. I would be very interested to find out from doctor how many psychiatrists we have. The police told me they have one now, so which is good. But it would be how much psychiatrists we have in Grenada. And there are other questions. Also, there are studies. There's a study that came out that says, for instance, of every 100 of us, there's at least 4 among us who are either sociopaths or psychopaths. Could you comment on that? There are other stuff I could cover, but I'll be patient tonight for that.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Doc?
Well, Godfrey, it was difficult for me to follow. It was breaking up a little there. So I don't know. I really couldn't respond too intelligently to this caller.
He was one of the things I remember asking. He's asking about how many psychiatrists we have in Grenada and things like that, and then something about people being killed by police in the U.S. that I wasn't sure I was able to follow.
So this piece. I think what he was talking about with is the way the brain perceives and the brain thinks, and a lot of times, history has taught us how to live and how not to live and how to behave. So when you see certain things on television or you experience certain things, you prepare yourself mentally to be able to deal with it. The question about how many psychiatrists and psychologists that are in Grenada, I will tell you that there aren't enough. Basically the government has employed about 3 people who are acting as psychiatrists in Grenada. They serve the General Hospital and the Mungay facility. We have a couple psychologists, mostly based, a few of them based at SGU, and 1 or 2 that are in private practice. But we really don't have. And the reason for it is that, Godfrey, as a psychologist, it takes a tremendous amount of training and education to become a clinical psychologist.
Yes, it does.
People look elsewhere for employment that are more lucrative than what the peanuts that are paid to professionals in Grenada. And so the caller is right. We do not have enough professionals to deal with the mental health challenges that Grenadians are faced with. And so the few that are around are probably overworked and underpaid. And that's not a great incentive for people who are graduating with doctorates in psychology to leave the United States or England or Canada to come and work in Grenada. It's
to deal with such, very highly sensitive and important area of study. Let's get back to the telephone. And Dr. It seemed that we lost that call there. Okay. The number, folks, 435-2041. You can give us a call if you have any questions you'd like to ask. Definitely we'll attempt to assist you in whatever way we can. All right. So, Doc, we have another call. Let's see who is with us. Dr. and call. Good evening.
Yeah, Godfrey, I had to come back. I thank Dr. Panchoo for his answer. And some time ago, I was watching a video of a gentleman who was a doctor. I don't think he was a psychologist. He was a doctor. He had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and they were normal children. They grew up, I think, in the early 20s. And all of a sudden, they were diagnosed with, they couldn't find a diagnosis, but they would become like what we usually call imbecile. And they couldn't find anything physically to cause them to be imbecile. And for years, he's been treating. He have other doctors like psychologists, sociologists. They team up to see how they could examine these children, and they couldn't find anything. Eventually, they had to find spiritual help. And he said that after they went to so-and-so place, the children became normal. What would that be like? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, there is something. Godfrey, let me say this here. Remember when I was introducing mental health conditions, mental disorders, mental health issues, I said that the environment plays a part in your total wellness, mental health wellness. And sometimes just change of location, change of environment, change of place of abode can change the way the brain perceives things and the neurotransmitters and the brain chemicals. You can move from a low-lying area to a high-lying area in terms of geography. And your body perceives it differently, and it activates chemicals in your body. It could be happy chemicals. It could be your dopamine levels. It could be your serotonin levels that will challenge. And depending on where in the world you move, it can change. Godfrey, sometimes just getting a job can change you from being a sad puppy or someone dealing with a lot of sadness and depression and melancholy to somebody vivacious and full of life. Sometimes getting married can do that. Maybe having a child can do that sometimes. So there are certain things that happen in our lives that we call situational circumstances. And if your situation changes sometimes, so does your mental health
experience. Yeah. Somebody on our Facebook page is asking, the issue of mental illness, is it connected to genetics?
Yes, and we said that at first. Genetics. You look at things like addictive behaviors, and very often in Grenada is more alcoholism. I challenge you to look around. Almost all of the young alcoholics that you see, if you go and check in the lineage, you will see that either their father or the grandfather recently was diagnosed with an addiction also, because there is an addictive gene that we inherit from one parent to the other. Not only that, there are certain family that is, genetic deformities that are transmitted in the genes. And so when you do biology, we get that. So yes, the answer is yes. There are certain things, schizophrenia, bipolar, addictive behaviors, can pass on in the genes.
Okay, let's go back to the telephone. Dr. Cole, good evening. Caller, can you turn the volume of your radio down, please, and listen to us on the telephone?
Hallelujah. Come on. Hallelujah.
Clearly, Doc, a patient there for you. But I have a question on our Facebook page. Someone is asking, excuse me, what cause a patient to neglect their personal hygiene?
Oh, a lot of things can cause a client or a patient or a person. Yeah. Because to be a patient, you have to be seen a doctor.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So a person to neglect their hygiene, your general mental health state, your awareness. Godfrey, there's something in psychology and in human life called awareness. Are you aware? Can you see danger? Can you perceive that it is going to rain? So you need to have, instead of a flip-flop slippers, you need to put on a whole shoes to protect yourself.
Boots, yes.
That kind of stuff. People who are not aware, they will drive in the traffic and then they cause accident because they're not aware. So there is something called awareness. So Godfrey, what happened? Boy, I tell you. So in psychology, and I'm kind of losing trend of the very specific question right now because
yes. So what causes? Yeah. I think reference there is made to someone being schizophrenic though when they maybe vagrancy. Yeah, in a sense.
Right. So let's go now to the specific question about what would cause somebody to neglect their hygiene. A lot of times, people suffering with and living with schizophrenia, they hear voices. Sometimes the voices tell them, avoid water.
Yeah.
Very specific water. Or they could have a fear of water. If you have a delusion, you think that there are people or enemy in the water. And as a result, you stay away from water. Or toothbrush, you may be feeling having experiencing a delusion that tells you that there are demons in toothbrush, and you stay away from brushing your teeth. So a lot of times the delusionary, persecutionary, paranoid behavior issues that schizophrenic people deal with will cause them to neglect their hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
And then general sadness, Godfrey, general sadness. And there is something in psychology that is called anhedonia, ANHEDONIA. Anhedonia is the general lack of interest in things that you once enjoyed. So I mean, if you enjoyed sea bathing and you have a depressive state, you leave that out. Hanging out with friends, you don't want to do that. And cleanliness is one of them. When you are depressed, you want to stay in bed and you are not motivated
to do anything.
Take care of your hygiene. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone else is asking, is Alzheimer's considered a mental illness?
Yes, it is. It is a general medical condition. Alzheimer's is, because it is more dealing with the decline of brain capacity, but it is a mental health condition. So it falls under the DSM that you referred to, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, edition 5, that psychiatrists and psychologists depend on. It's like our Bible. That's where we find the symptoms with the corresponding diagnoses when we see people. So yes, caller. Yes.
Right. We have another caller on the line. Let's see. Yes. Dr. Call, good evening.
Yeah, I'm sorry that the doctor didn't hear me clearly, but I want to ask him, are you hearing me better now?
Okay. Yes, I am hearing you absolutely better now. Yeah.
Yeah, what I was saying the first time, in terms of based on what you said about something might come back from people's childhood and may trigger some, behavior. That was linking with maybe what happened, the disparity in the deaths among people of color and mainly African people in places like the United States and so on, in relation to the police. But I also want to ask you about, in terms of there's a condition called neurosis, which many people suffer from, and maybe even me too, I don't know. But could you explain what is neurosis versus psychosis for us?
Right.
So that people will have a
neurosis. Neurosis
comes
from neural, the nervous system. So it is symptoms that relate to the neurological system. Okay, so you have things like anxiety and the ability to feel and emotional. So when you talk about neurosis or neurotic, you say people have neurotic behaviors. It has to do with the perception of the effects of the nervous system. Okay, and when you talk about psychotic, you are more dealing with psycho, which is motor. So there is overlapping between neurosis and psychosis, but each of them deal with a very specific mental health challenge, and that's the short version of the answer that I want to give to that. Yeah.
Right. Let's go back to the telephone. And Dr. on call, good evening. Hello.
Hello, good night. I'm calling concerning with the program. Someone who suffers from anxiety. I would like to ask Dr. Panchoo. Can someone lay in bed? Sometimes people lay in bed and they feel so depressed. They doesn't want to go out. They want to isolate themselves. What is the best natural remedy you think or advice you should give to them? Is it better like they try and get out, walk, or maybe go out with people instead of you lying there? Because I think when you lie there, I think sometimes the situation gets worse. I have a friend who suffers from anxiety, and I would like to know what's best for that person dealing with anxiety.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, you seem to have a fairly good grasp of what depression/anxiety is all about. When you're dealing with depression or anxiety, you have little motivation to get out, and this is not what the mental health condition needs. What the mental health condition needs, Godfrey, to help it is for you to get out there. And here are some, so the question you're asking is a really pertinent one. What are some of the great remedies and or answers to helping you get out there? Well, it's sometimes very difficult to get people out there. But if you can get the person out there, the sunlight and physical activity, offer the sunlight, and when you exercise in the sunlight, it boosts your serotonin levels. What is the importance of the serotonin in the body? The serotonin helps you to sleep. Okay? It's one of the neurotransmitters that helps you to sleep. It helps memory. It activates learning. And so if you could get out there and exercise and to do it so in the sunlight, it increases your serotonin levels. Your serotonin levels also helps you to sleep. So it gives you memory, it gives you activity, and it helps you to sleep and get rest. One of the things that we recommend is medication, because if you are so vegetatively depressed and can only find peace and comfort when you are laying in your bed. It's a chemical imbalance that you probably need some form of help so that you could get out there, because staying inside is not going to help you. But then it's difficult to get people who are vegetatively depressed. When we're talking about vegetative depression, we are looking more at major depression or major depressive disorder. That's how the DSM puts it. And if you have a major depressive disorder, it means that you have been suffering for a long time.
A long time, yes, indeed.
A long time. And so you may need some form of medication or what we refer to as an antidepressant. And you can get it prescribed. And there are some really expensive ones in Grenada that have helped. And I see on a daily basis helping people. So get some help, some medication, get out there, exercise, enjoy the sunlight. And these are remedies, things that we hear about all the time. So if you could get the person to be involved in that, it can surely help them. And when you get them involved with some medication and maybe some exercise and sunlight, then you can also introduce them to psychotherapy, where they can come and talk to a professional that can help guide them through the process of reviving themselves.
Right. So, Doc, earlier we spoke of the symptoms that one can look for, to determine whether or not they are going down that road. All right. So, a patient comes to you and he says, "Look, Doc, this is what I'm feeling. I don't feel good. I'm not in the right mental place." All of that, and of course, you do your interviews and everything. As a clinical psychologist, what do you look for specifics to make that diagnosis so that you can start, helping the patient?
Yes, Godfrey. First of all, I do a very in-depth history.
Mm-hmm.
I ask questions as, is it the first time? Okay. How long ago can you remember that you started to experience these kinds of feelings?
Mm-hmm.
Then I also go, is it something that you can trace back to your early childhood? Okay. Then I ask questions, is there anybody in your family who have lived with and or suffered from a depressive disorder or mental health disorder?
Mm-hmm.
So a history about your family is really important. So you need to know your history well, because a lot of times, because of genetics and the way things are passed on from one family or family to the other, it is important to get that picture. It is also important to get a picture about your own history about depression or anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Godfrey, before I make the diagnosis, I want to rule out, and the DSM advises us always to rule out the biological aspect. In other words, make sure that the body is working well.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is that I make a referral to a medical doctor. I send you back to your primary care physician, the PCP, and say to the PCP, I'm seeing this person, these are the complaints I do a referral to, and can you see that person with the hope of ordering CBC, a complete blood count, or some specific blood work? So that could give us an idea as to, are we dealing with something biological?
Yeah.
Or are we dealing with something that is psychological?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when that is done, then I'm in a better position now to say, okay, let's go now and do some assessment in psychology to figure out what it is we're dealing with. And when I do that, then I draw up a plan with the person. I say to you, you may need a couple sessions, maybe 10 sessions, maybe for a year you need to be seeing me, or seeing someone really. And so, because when someone comes to me, I do not tell them at the end of the session that you need to see me tomorrow or next week.
Right.
I say to you, you may need a lot of help, and sometimes it can cost. And I think you need to see someone, and I give them the option to decide who they want to see, because there are other people outside of myself. But it is there is a certain protocol that each professional takes when he is seeing someone before we can come to the diagnosing part of saying, well, I think you're living with depression or bipolar, or you know, or maybe you have a personality disorder. Because I do a lot of testing, Godfrey. I test for personality defects, personality disorder, depression, anxiety, ADHD, all of these things we can test. We can actually do evaluative stuff, whether it's paper and pencil or computer generated test to help you to determine what kind of mental illness we're dealing with.
Because, you know, a lot of the mental illnesses, they do present in a similar manner. So you would have to be certain, you know, which one of these conditions the patient is experiencing. Right.
Yes.
Let's go back to the telephone and take a final call. Doctor on call, good evening.
Hello?
Yes, good evening. Can you turn the volume of your radio down? Listen to me on your telephone, please.
Yes, good afternoon.
Caller, can you turn the volume of your radio or your TV down? Listen to me on your phone.
Okay, yes, I'm listening to you on the phone. Yes, there's a problem that occurred about 2 years ago with the person that's speaking, and they come down with just a heart beating. They had just beating, and like you're getting a problem like from my ears, from my heart to my ears, and sometimes become nervy, feel kind of shake, like my body shaking in a kind of way, you know. So I want to find out what is the cause and if they have any cure or what it could be done about it.
Okay, thank you, thank you, caller. Doc.
Yeah, well, caller, I am not in a position to give you a diagnosis of what the complaints that you're saying, but what you're saying resembles that of maybe an anxiety disorder, something that's going on. That's triggering your brain to tell itself that it is fearful or it is about to re-experience a trauma from the past. So I don't know what that is. I need to, you know, somebody needs to see you. So you need to go see somebody if you continue to experience this, a professional to help to take a history, to look at the symptoms with you and to help you to figure out whether it is an anxiety attack you're having or maybe it is a real physiological problem. It could be a problem with heart palpitations that you're having or some other form of physical ailment. So it is wise to check out a professional to get a history and to be able to get a diagnosis. In that way, they will be able to help. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Let's squeeze in that last call. That's our last call, folks, because we're getting close to wrap up time. So we're squeezing that last call.
Yeah.
Doctor on call. Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. There are. The doctor is on point when he says that sunshine helps with depression, and that is absolutely correct. I wanted to find out if walnuts is considered to be a brain food. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Doc?
What is considered to be What is considered to be a brain food?
Walnut.
Say that again?
Walnuts. If walnuts. Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I am not a dietitian, so I want to put that out there. And I do not give advice on diet, except for the fact that, lifestyle changes, but I can't because I'm not an expert in diet and in dietetics. But yes, walnut, I am told, when you look at the walnut, you realize if you open a walnut, it resembles the layering of the brain. And so a lot of people tend to believe that there is a relationship between eating walnuts. But the the nutritive value of walnuts is well established in research. So anybody could read up the research and to know that walnut is a food that is very, very healthy. So if you want to call it a brain food, then maybe that might be a good thing. Yes, I agree with you. It is a very nutritious nut, and it's good for you. Yeah.
Right. So that's all the calls we can take tonight, folks. Doc, we almost at the end of the allotted time. But maybe, I can ask you to just quickly summarize what we discussed tonight, and then next week we can go into some more of the mental disorders.
Okay. We started off tonight by giving a definition. We say that mental illness is having a wide range of mental health conditions that adversely affect our thinking, our mood, and consequently our behaviors. And we also established that for something to be considered, for a condition to be considered a mental illness or for a mental diagnosis, it must affect three areas of our lives. It must affect our career or work, it must affect our education or scholastic pursuits, and it must affect our family or our community. And if any of those three are present, then you start thinking that you might be living with a mental illness or mental disorder. We talked tonight about the various symptomatology, what to look for, whether it is the isolation, the suicidal thought, the anger, the violence, the serious depressive mood swings, etc. Those are symptoms that can be recognized. And so tonight we sort of zeroed in on the anxiety disorder. So we talk about general anxiety disorder, we talk about panic disorder, we talk about specific phobias. We didn't talk a lot about separation anxiety disorder and selective mutism, and then the last one was social anxiety disorder. That is people who are fearful of public, so they find it really hard to speak in public, even in small classes.
Yeah.
So what we did tonight was to introduce the anxiety disorders. Then we have for other times we have the depressive disorders. Then we have the personality disorders, and we are going to take a whole session to talk about the personality.
Oh yes, because there
are 10 of them, and they are very, very common in our population. So it was a pleasure. We want to thank Godfrey. We want to thank the callers who make this program really good to listen to, and for GBN for the opportunity to share, on TV and on YouTube and on Facebook, because this understanding, Godfrey, when you start understanding mental illness and how people can live with it, we have a better appreciation for the holistic well-being of people.
Yes.
Too many times I think we have this stigma about crazy people, and we see mental illness as just people diagnosed with schizophrenia. But there are thousands of people who drive, who go to work on a daily basis, who function in real life, very successful, and they are living with a mental
disorder. Yes, indeed. And that is so true, folks. So we thank you very much, Dr. Panchoo. Thank you so very much. Next week, we will continue, and we will continue to provide you the information, so you can be in a position where you can live healthier and be more comfortable. It is a very, very, very important area, and so we want to be able to give you as much information as we can to help you along the way. So thank you, everyone, for staying with us. Thank you for your calls. Those of you who couldn't get to call in this week, you can join us next week for certain, and we'll definitely be able to accommodate you. All right, and that's barring that we have no CPL game on Tuesday. All right, because the CPL starts
Yes, Godfrey.
on Monday.
CPL is this week, right? This weekend.
Well, actually, this weekend. It starts on Monday.
Yeah.
We have a couple games starting tomorrow, but these are early games, some pre-warm-up matches. But it starts fully on Monday, and it will affect some of our evening programs. But we will try as much as possible. Once there aren't any games that will interfere with the programs, you can rest assured we will bring the programs to you. All right? Tomorrow you can join me and Dr. Panchoo again. Release it. We have a lot of thing to release tomorrow.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So be sure to join us for that. You don't want to miss that one. So until then, do have a good night. Take good care. And, be good. We'll meet you again tomorrow, please God. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Drug abuse, cancer,